Hello, everybody. Welcome, friends, to this talk about the Age of Aquarius. I have been forecasting, or rather prefacing about me doing this topic for a very long time, but it's taken me this long in order to actually put together my thoughts as to what the Age of Aquarius actually is, if we're in it right now, and what does it mean for us now and in the near future. People have been singing about the dawning of the Age of Aquarius. If you remember the Hair musical, of course, this is the dawning of the Age of Aquarius. The lyrics don't really speak to anything relevant as to what the Age of Aquarius actually is, but for a very long time, the Age of Aquarius has been thought of a period of time in human evolution where we are said to kind of transcend this level of being, and you're kind of like on to the next stage of human evolution. So there was a monumental great conjunction in December 21st of 2020. So that was last year. It was the official, that conjunction. And this is actually when I had started to talk about the fact that I wanted to do this topic and do a presentation on this topic, because that was the conjunction. That was kind of like the first signal that we were going into the Age of Aquarius. And so, of course, as much as we would like to think that things all happen at once, that is not the case. It's usually a kind of slow moving transition as we make the shift from the Age of Pisces into the Age of Aquarius. We're actually coming up to the anniversary of that. So that's actually a very energetically spicy time. So on that date, the two of the largest planets in the solar system, quick prize, if you can guess which two those are, it would be Jupiter and Saturn. And so they're two big cosmic giants that are going to be conjunct in the sign of Aquarius, which is kind of like the signal that, okay, we're here now, we are in the Age of Aquarius. And so both Jupiter and Saturn rule and represent social issues in our lives and relate to both authority and leadership. And they only form a common conjunct aspect every couple of decades. So when they do, it's a huge deal. This is the standout cosmic event of the latter half of 2020. So the last half of 2020, which everyone knows as being quite the year. And it basically catalyzes some serious shifts, which is kind of timely to this particular talk, which is happening on the 23rd of November as we enter Sagittarius season. So we've kind of gone through Scorpio, where you've been introspective, kind of had a great revealing, some truths came to light, and now it is in the fire sign of Sagittarius. So we're going to use that to kind of put those introspectives, those highlights, those things that you need to kind of work on into action. And so bringing that back to what the Age of Aquarius actually is, Aquarius is the sign of innovation, of technology, and revolution. According to the Belgian astronomer and mathematical wizard Jean Metis, who does adhere to the AIU's definitions, the sun at the March equinox passed from being in front of the constellation Aries to being in the front of the constellation Pisces in 68 BC. So looking ahead, again, according to Jean Metis, the March equinox will cross over into the constellation Aquarius in 2597. So I think that's basically when we're officially in the Age of Aquarius. So I guess it's like a few hundred years off, but we're close. We're like starting that, I think, that move towards it. So this is like a strict astronomical definition as opposed to an astrological definition, if that makes sense. So in the Hair musical, the way that the lyrics go, what they say is, when the moon is in the 7th house and Jupiter aligns with Mars, then peace will guide the planets and love will steer the stars. This is the dawning of the age of Aquarius. Well, it sounds nice, but none of those things, if any astrologers know anything, they don't really mean anything. So, so to explain how the Earth actually moves through the signs, the Earth actually moves retrograde through all of the astrological signs. So we actually started in the age of Leo. And that kind of makes sense, right? Because you think of lions, think of like year 0 BC, although I think you kind of like count, I'm not quite sure how you do that in dates, but think of like, boom, year 0, it's the age of Leo. Leo is where you started. And then from there, I think you moved into Cancer. So basically you're kind of moving backwards. So the sign that we're coming from is actually Pisces. So we're moving from Pisces into Aquarius. So before that, if you were to kind of like make a log of when important things happened, if you think about the age of Aries, and Aries being very like, if you think of Rome and conquerors, so Alexander the Great, it was the age of that. So the Roman Empire, and that was kind of like the age of Aries. When you kind of moved towards more agriculture and farming and irrigation and all that, that was the age of Taurus. So being as you're moving backwards through time, so you would have had the irrigation and it would say like Egyptian culture or like irrigation stuff first in Taurus, and you'd move into Aries. So just to give you a sense of how the Earth herself is moving through the signs in retrograde. So that's just another tip to kind of show that retrogrades are not always a bad thing. It can also just mean like an introspective thing. So it's kind of interesting also as well that the Earth is moving through retrograde. It will take the Earth approximately 25,868 years to visit all 12 signs. So once we are in the age of Aquarius, we will stay in the sign for approximately 2,000 years. So yeah, so each sign is about 2,000 years. It does differ. You'll find that some constellations, if you think about your charts, some constellations, you'll notice that it just spans a longer time just because that constellation is just larger and it just takes up a larger map of the sky. So if we think about our movement away from Pisces into Aquarius, Pisces is known for universal love. If you think about Pisces, you would kind of almost think, I think about Christ, just because of like the fish, the loaves and the fish that Jesus gave out. And so I think from that perspective, you can kind of think of Pisces as almost being like the age of Christianity, and that type of hierarchy, right? So the idea of having a pope and a priest and like that kind of situation. It also, Pisces can represent patriarchy in this regard as well. So the movement away from that can be a very positive thing because you're now moving away from having a hierarchy to having more of a society that would be self-organized and self-collaborating in that kind of way to achieve a common goal, instead of having almost like a conduit who's speaking from God and then speaking down to his people. Or like, even if you think of it from a corporation standpoint, you know, you have like your CEO and then all of like minions that follow underneath it. The thing about Aquarius, there's a strong need for independence and individualism. And so members of this group can be idiosyncratic because they can be original and inventive. And Aquarius is very interesting because it's about the group. It's about, I guess, the entire, like the society as a whole. So I myself, I have a Jupiter in Aquarius, which means like Jupiter is expansive. And then that's also why I'm doing this talk right now, because of that. Also, Aquarius was the sign that ancient astrologers truly believed would be the best sign to kind of shepherd humanity into the next stage of life on the planet. And that is significant. Also, a quick thing to note, my marriage is Aquarius, so that's also fun stuff. So in terms of what does that mean for now, what are you going to do with the idea that we are moving into the age of Aquarius? So the way I kind of look at it is my interpretation. Aquarius is all about technology and digital and social constructs, but it's also about being rebellious and breaking those things down. Now, a problem, I shouldn't say a problem, I'll use a challenge with air signs, and I should know because I'm married to one, is that they're going to be a high level of idealism. And while this can come from a very, let's say, good place, it can kind of sometimes be militant in the sense of, think of cancel culture, right? In the name of racism, but think of it to the point where it's overdone, right? Where you're canceling people for simple mistakes, for the very need, or censorship as a whole, because you're trying to push an idea of ensuring that there's no hate speech, but at what cost, right? At people's freedom. So there's a level of almost trying to push certain idealisms forward because you truly believe that it's for the greater good, but there needs to also be a level of balance there, right? And I think being also in a transitionary period, there's also a level of trying to do away with like the old systems and old ways of doing things. For example, just, taking ownership and responsibility for yourself when it comes to spirituality, when it comes to your body, and when it comes to your mind and your own enlightenment. You do not need a priest. You don't need anyone else other than you to figure all of those things out. And that is what the Age of Aquarius shows us. And I think also from a perspective of understanding that this body is technology, and what it means to then transcend to the next stage of human evolution. When we think of technology, it's a matter of perhaps shifting our perspective and looking at it, similar to Dune, right? Where you have so much awareness, so much consciousness into every cell of your body that you can kind of upgrade it, regulate it, control it no different than you would like a supercomputer. So that is my take on the Age of Aquarius. Finally, I'm gonna hopefully do an edit where I cut in some cool hair moments where the music is in there and I don't get flagged for copyright. But also going to use this time to do a quick pitch for the fact that I will be doing Wednesday Astro Chats live on YouTube at 8 p.m. Eastern. I don't know what that is Pacific or anything with daylight savings time. Daylight savings time is another topic that we can do later. But for now, I'll be doing every Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on IGLive and on YouTube Live. So you can catch me there. And you can also get a birth chart reading. Remember, I am still a baby astrologer. I'm still a newbie at this. So I'm really looking at the natal chart and just kind of like placements of planets and putting myth on top of that. But if you're interested in that, you can check out the links in the description